Clinton Police Department, our topic today on our FYI show, a public service here on KROS. We've got Clinton Police Chief Kevin Gyrion with us and new Deputy Police Chief James Ballauer. Do you get that right, James? We're going to put you on the spot because I think the chief wanted to get you in to do all the talking, but we're going to make him talk a little bit.
I'd appreciate that.
James, you started just, about a month ago?
The second week of March, I believe.
Tell us about where you came from, how you ended up here.
Well, I was with the Chicago Police Department for almost 23 years, and I was looking for a change. I had looked online for a few job opportunities and saw Clinton pop up here and applied and went through the interview process and was lucky enough to be picked. And,
well, the chief came from Chicago. Any connection there? Did you ever wrote? Or is it a huge police department?
Yeah, it's a big department. We laugh because we have 20 mutual friends and never met each other prior, so it's kind of funny, but we know a lot of the same people. But like you said, it's a big department. We never worked at the same area at the same time. So,
Jay, when you do this, what's Chicago Police Department like? We'll talk about the Clinton, but worked in Chicago 20-something years. What's that like to work in a city that's the second or third largest in the country?
Well, it's rewarding and stressful. Obviously in 22 years, I had a lot of good times, a lot of hair-raising situations, lost a lot of good officers in the line of duty deaths. And so it's a whole gamut. I mean, any Chicago police officer could write a book this thick on stories and that. But I needed a little change. It was getting a little, redundant in with the way things are going nowadays, and that how police are kind of being unfairly portrayed a little bit, and I just needed a change and came out here and been happy so far. It's been great.
I've got to throw this in because one of the guys in the back while he asked me says, like the chief, White Sox or Cubs?
White Sox.
Okay.
Yeah, 100% White Sox.
How come out here it seemed like mostly Cubs fans? How'd you manage that? Or maybe in Chicago it's different.
We're trying to change that one person at a time, Dave.
Oh, he's a Bears fan too?
Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks.
Blackhawks?
Yeah, I had season tickets to the Blackhawks for 10 years and just recently gave those up. But, I was there for all the titles, and we got them at the right time. We got them a year before they won their first cup, so got to enjoy a lot of those games. But
what's it like moving out here, taking, when you moved here, what responsibilities did you have compared to what you have now? What rank, what kind of responsibility?
I was a lieutenant for the past 3 years in Chicago, and what I did is I ran the 9th District Tactical Team, which out here it's called the SCAT Team, and I worked the near south side of the city, just south of downtown, and incorporate a lot of Chinatown and White Sox Stadium and really diverse area, and it was a good area, great place to work in Chicago. And just prior to coming here, I was down at the police academy. I was in charge of recruit training. So I was only there for a little over a month before I came out here. So out here, it's a little more administrative. In Chicago, I was on the street a lot, and I like being on the street. I like driving around, and the chief will laugh and say, "Come on, you're inside now. You're not out there driving around and pulling people over."
Are you going to let him go on patrol a little bit?
He's always welcome to go on patrol, but we prefer his talents administratively.
But I'm a policeman at heart, and I still love the job. I still love going out and talking to people. I love, pulling up and talking to kids out there, and
Yeah, what's it like? You've been here, just a little over a month, 6 weeks now. What's it been like? How your reception been good?
It has, yeah. I've only found one dead fish under the car seat. I got that out of there, so we're good. Yeah.
You're good there, yeah.
No, everyone's been great. Really receptive. The public's been great, and a lot of people I talked to, and it's just rewarding to be in an area, and not that people don't appreciate the police in Chicago. A great deal do, more than you know, but it is nice to be out here and see how warmly the police are received, and it's just, it's a great community, and I've really been happy here so far.
Is that a little bit of a reception based on maybe a smaller community versus the larger town versus years of reputation?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Hard for you to say, maybe.
yeah, it's what people forget is people love the police. No matter what you hear, they love the police. They want the police out there, and a vast majority of the people support the police, which you don't really see much. So, on that token, it's kind of the same, but it's smaller towns, more close knit, and people know I'm coming out from Chicago. They've heard, and so it's been a warm reception, and I've been happy here, and I'm very glad I made the choice to come out. I'm glad that the chief had enough belief in me to hire me. So,
Chief mentioned that the reception. What do you think is based on? You mentioned this a lot of times. Is it the size of town that fits for some of that, where people maybe know the officers a little differently than they do in a city like Chicago? Does that play a part, or is it just simply the officers and the reputation?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that this is a warm and welcoming community, and every experience I've had has shown that. I think that it's also a small, close community. I think in Chicago they try and get that effect by breaking up the police department up into districts. They have 25 police districts in the city, and they try and get that community involvement, community relationship between the police and the citizens. But here you don't have to try. I mean, here it's a natural part of existence, and it's really good.
Maybe both of you jump in, since you're an administrative level now. For years, we've heard the term community policing. Is that still a thing for police departments?
Oh, yeah. Well, community policing started in Chicago in '92, long before Young Buck was even a police department. But and the theory was that any police department, and it's still a valid theory, you need the community involvement, you need a partnership with the community to be an effective police department. You can see the issues today where the community and the police are becoming, a wedge is becoming forced in between them, and that's bad news. So I think community involvement and partnership with the police department is necessary to have a good police department, and police law enforcement, effectiveness needs to be a partner with the community.
James, what about you? What do you think of that?
I agree totally. And I like I said, I think that this wedge that you see, and it's not there as much as it appears. Especially last year in Chicago during the social unrest, I can't tell you how many people came up to us and thanked us, and people from all walks of life, and it was very rewarding. And when I was in the academy, I asked the new recruit classes coming in, and I said, How many of you guys in this class think that the public does not like the police anymore? And 98% of the class raised their hands, which is unfortunate. It's their belief in the young people now, because I told them, you're going to find it's the complete opposite. You're going to go out and people are going to wave to you and they're going to thank you. And it's the appearance of this us versus them and police. It's not there. I myself feel very supported as a police officer, and I have in Chicago, and I really have out here.
What about training for this, for both of you? It says, do you have to train the officers on this community policing idea of what to do and how to do it, or is it just something you assume is natural for somebody?
Well, it starts with the selection of the officers. I've been fortunate enough to have a very active role in the officers we select. The officers who apply, for the most part, are community-oriented police people, and in today's day and age, they know from day one what we expect of them, and we expect them to treat people with respect and dignity, all people. And I tell them to treat people like you would want your mother or your sister or your daughter or your father, if they were pulled over by the police, you would want them treated. And I think that's a huge thing, and we demand it, and we watch body camera video, and we are always reviewing that to make sure we maintain that level of respect between the citizens and the police officers.
Dave, did it come natural for you to do that?
Everything with time and age. When I first got on I came on in 1998, and when you're young and you come on, and you want to be the police and you want to go out and arrest people, and you have this mindset of I'm going to go out there and I'm going to grab the bad guys, and you forget about the line gets blurred, not blurred, but you start looking at everyone as, okay, they're the bad guys, we're the good guys. But with time and meeting people and talking to people, and that goes by the wayside, and it comes naturally. It just comes down to treating people good, and it's rewarding. It's rewarding when little kids wave to you and see the police. And like I say, I still like being on the street now, and not to go arrest people and that, but to interact with people, to talk to people, and how you can help them in just little ways.
I guess we have to get into some of this. The use of force. You both know that's kind of one of the huge issues right now. For the Clinton Police Department, walk us through some of the training for officers in these situations that we have seen across the country. Is there different training offered here versus somewhere else? What does the Clinton Police Department train in those situations?
Well, the officers go to 16 weeks of Iowa Law Enforcement Academy training as their basic training. There they're taught the use of force continuums and proper use of force, and when to use force and when not to use force. But we use that strictly as a base. When they come here, we send them through a 10-week FTO program where use of force has always been a strong point or strong suit of training, but now even more so with the things happening in current events. But we constantly, body-worn cameras have been a huge benefit to us, because any situation where there's force necessary that's been used or affected, we review that footage of that incident, of that arrest, and we critique it. The whole command staff critiques it. And if there's a training issue, if there's something that needs to be improved, we bring the officer in and their supervisor in, and we go over it and we correct it. But the use of force has always been, it's always a number one priority for us to make sure it's being used properly.
James, you've been on the streets. What do you?
Well, one of the biggest benefits that has come to police officer and use of force is the de-escalation training that comes with the crisis intervention training, which we had in Chicago and we have out here. And the de-escalation training, it does work. It's worked several times. Myself experiences where before it may have got escalated and turned into a physical arrest, but in a lot of aspects, when it's not a immediate need to arrest the people, talking and giving them time and just kind of de-escalating the situation without going to physical force right away does work. It does. And I can tell you 4 instances in Chicago that absolutely would have turned into a semi-violent physical arrest with an offender, where just the simple tactics of de-escalation and time and distance have worked and resulted in a safe outcome. So I think that's big in helping with the use of force.
Okay, and we're leader in Iowa. We have the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Crisis Team.
I was going to bring that.
Yeah.
You got an agreement there. Talk a little bit about that. What you're doing that maybe really hasn't been widespread yet.
Well, one of the first things I noticed when I got here 5 years ago was the overabundance of and the inordinate amount of mental health crisis calls we received. Some of it is drug driven, drug induced, but a lot of it is mental health driven, and we never want to put someone in jail because of a mental health crisis. So one of our plans that we come up with was working in conjunction with the Eastern Iowa mental health crisis people. We have professionals riding with us 3 times a week. They ride around with our officers and our supervisors, and they respond to mental health calls, with the officers, and they're able to, many times, we have records of last month, or for example, 16 calls for mental health situations. 15 of them were handled by these mental health crisis experts without the officers ever having to be involved from a legal standpoint. There was never any force necessary. The other instance, the person went to the hospital. So all these situations were handled without any law enforcement action necessary, which cuts down on use of force, cuts down on jailing people. But they've been able to de-escalate and use their professional mental health training to address these people and to help these people find cures or medical attention down the road. It's even spread now. We have someone in communications 1 or 2 days a week, and I'm getting emails from other chiefs around the area asking us about this program and how we got it going and keep it going.
Is it expandable? You said you got three times a week. How many do you have coming? Is it one? Do you have every officer has a ride along?
Well, I was just informed by the mental health people and the director of that mental health program that they just received $220,000 from federal money, or I think federal or state money, that to continue this program and improve it, and $70,000 strictly for another individual to be assigned. So it's working because we're documenting the need for the mental health assistance, and it's helping us. And our officers are all CIT trained, so it goes hand in hand to address the situation.
CIT, what is that?
Crisis intervention team.
Right. Okay. So, how many do you have? You mentioned 3 days. Do you have 3 days, or do you have multiple coming? How do you allocate that? You mentioned you're documenting the need. You documented the calls.
Right. We have.
How many mental health people do you have with you?
That I know, there's 3 or 4 young ladies that are professionals. They come in 3 or 4 times a week, and their hours adjust because they don't all live in Clinton, so they're coming from Muscatine or from Scott County. So they come here for 8 or 9 hours a shift, and they ride with the officers. So we're hopeful that we get one all the time, because when they can prevent a law enforcement interaction with someone in crisis, it goes a long way to removing us from the situation and helping that person get help.
When they're here, they ride in the car with the officer, so when the call comes in, they are there. Because I know that's one of the questions that comes up. You can have this, but if they aren't out on the streets, by the time they get there, the situation may be over, and it may not have gone as smoothly.
Right, and that's the benefit of it. It used to be when we have someone in mental health crisis, we would call these teams, and they'd come from Davenport, 30, 45 minutes response time. And many times that's either escalated beyond our control. We have to take a law enforcement action to protect them, the person in crisis or other citizens, or the person just needs an ambulance and it's too late. So this way we get to them as soon as they're calling out for help, or someone else is calling for help, and we can effectively nip it in the bud as much as we can.
What are the officers' responses to having this help?
That was a concern for me, because a lot of officers think that they're out there to help people, and to have someone else saying, stand back, officer, we can handle this. I was concerned about that, but it's been overwhelmingly approval rating from the officers. They love it. They actually seek out the professionals now when they hear of a call. So they're triaging themselves and saying, send a mental health expert with us. So
a little adjustment there on their part too. So it's working well then.
It's working very well.
Hey, wish you had that over your career.
Yeah, I mean, when we had the crisis intervention training, in which I think is probably in the past 20 years, probably the most beneficial training of police officers there is out there. When we had heard about social workers in riding with police officers, and to be honest, what my standpoint and a lot of people's standpoint in Chicago is, that's not going to work. How's that going to work? And when we came out here and I brought it up, they said, no, we're already doing it. And I saw it, and it absolutely works. And it's to the point now where a lot of, we've had several instances where people were in crisis, and they have come to the police station and asked for the social worker prior to the police showing up to whatever call for service there was. So, it's never, I never liked the fact that mental illness is criminalized, and it was not criminal. It was criminalized because we didn't know how to handle it. And when you came into someone in crisis, or you came into a schizophrenic on the street or something in crisis, we weren't taught, we weren't brought up on this job how to deal with that. It was just, you take them away, you take them to the ambulance, or you arrest them. So the fact that we're learning more, and police are being trained now out of the academy how to deal with mental illness in people in crisis, it definitely made a huge difference.
I know too, and I think maybe you talked about it, Chief, or the mayor has. This kind of goes back. Maybe it's an ongoing thing. The training that's done. I think the mayor was surprised. I guess it was last summer when there was some of the unrest or some questions about how police officers were trained in handling situations. The Clinton Police Department was already doing some things that were already being recommended departments to do to broaden their training. Joseph, can you talk a little bit about that aspect of the training? I don't remember the name of it, but I know there was some specific things that were being suggested.
Yeah, there was numbers. There was numbers of policies, referenced, and I don't remember the exact numbers either. But everything that they mentioned as far as police reform and their policy and procedures, we were luckily enough to have been addressing previous to the whole incident, because Again, our relationship with the community and how we police and how we work as partners with the community is what affected our policy and procedure. We were already doing what these groups or this event highlighted other agencies were lacking. We were already a step ahead of them and working hard on our relationship with the community. And many of these policies and procedures dealt with how the police interact with the community and how they affect the rest and how they prevent problems before they arise. And we already had all those things in place.
Was this new for you when you came, or was this something done in Chicago as well that people may not have been aware of?
Well, it was a different dynamic last year with the social unrest and that, and it was it was a different, for lack of a better word, it was. I was downtown last year during the social unrest, and I think a lot of it was it's easy to learn use of force and how to deal, but when you have a lit garbage can pushed at you and bricks flying at you, it's very easy to I can't even explain what it was like down there, but it's out here in a closer knit environment. It's easier to build a relationship with the people and handle things, where in Chicago it's you go to a job and you go to another call, you're just a lot busier, where here you can focus more on the community that
Throw this out there and what we see, especially in the last couple of weeks after the trial in Minneapolis, it seemed like every day there was another case of police involved in a violent incident, making an arrest or making a stop or serving a warrant, and then shots were fired and people ended up being dead or injured. Are we overlooked? Is that the case of those random incidents? There's more incidents we're not hearing about. Is that throw it out here, is the media partly to blame for some of the situation by seeing some of these? We've had that in the last few days. They had the military officer being stopped for some reason here a couple weeks ago. It actually happened last year, but the body camera video just came out.
Right.
Are those being played up in the wrong fashion?
Well, in my experience, Dave, our job, we are tasked as law enforcement officers, we are tasked with that's why if we wanted to be loved by everybody, we would have been a fireman. Our job, just the nature of our job, we're tasked with enforcing laws of this country in this municipality, and unfortunately, sometimes that means taking someone's liberties away. And anytime that's part of your job, there's going to be instances where humans, as police officers, make mistakes or do something wrong. Do I think we could improve? We can always improve. Do I think it's as bad as being portrayed? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think, and I'm thankful that in this community, we'll be out there this summer and schedule meetings this early spring and summer of community meetings where the community can talk to us. The community can get more involved with our police department, tell us problems they have, tell us their fears or concerns, and we can work at them before, God forbid, something happens. Because I believe in having a relationship with the community before something bad happens or before an officer makes a mistake or a citizen makes a mistake, because then you can draw back and lean on those relationships to solve the problem. I just think we're in Clinton, city of Clinton, we are in a much better situation than they are in other places that have been highlighted in the media. I think we're much, much better off.
You bring a different perspective to those situations.
Well, again, I think it plays into a lot of divisiveness that's going on currently I've always handled every job as they come. Every job is its own incident. You can't lump in 6 incidents and say it all happened the same way, because every one happens differently. And if you're trained right and you use the use of force you're supposed to use right, things work out normal. But it has to go on a mutual understanding of what to do when you are stopped by the police. And that comes with training and talking, and I know there's a lot of talk about what to do when you're stopped by the police. And I think that if both sides can learn what happens, what goes to a police officer's mind when he's stopping a car late at night, and what's going through the person in the car's mind when they're stopped late at night. From what I've seen in my career and out here is professionalism. And I think that given some incidents that have happened across the country, and it's painted all the police with a bad brush. But on a local level, when it comes down to it, people appreciate the police appreciate the public, and people want the police there and need the police.
Now, a lot of these obviously are focused to the minority situation. You mentioned the police need to understand. Is that some training? Is that something that maybe police don't get, is how the person they stop might be fearful, might have some concerns because of the situations, and again, maybe they're overplayed or not, but they're out there.
Well,
and that's what their understanding is. The numbers, they talk. The numbers tell them that they should have a concern. At least that's the story you hear.
It's what they're seeing in the media for sure. And again, Dave, that goes back to our meeting with the community regularly, our interactions with the community day in and day out, so that we have the relationship with them, and they know us and we know them, which is another benefit of a small community. Our officers know the people they're dealing with. The people we're dealing with know the officers. And our goal is to maintain a close relationship with them so we don't have the issues. And if people have fears or concerns of how they're being treated by the police, they come to me right away and we will address it. We have body-worn cameras. We do repeat training. We do scenario training. So we're trying to stay ahead of that as much as we can, but we need the community involvement, the community interaction with us to let us know how they feel. And we can avoid these situations if we stay ahead of it. I don't want to have to go back and say, I wish we had a better relationship. I want to have the relationship to prevent these things.
New Deputy Police Chief James Ballauer with us, along with the Police Chief. James, we'll let you get the first of the wrap up. What else? What would you like to give you the final comments here, and then we'll let the Chief close things out.
Well, like I said, I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the summer. We have a new boat we're going to be taking on the river. Trying to get the Chief to give me the keys to drive it. I'm working on that. But I look forward to being out here on the riverfront and getting to meet more people and being a part of the community here. And I'm just looking forward to being down in the summer out by the riverfront.
Don't let the Police Chief Kevin Gyrion keep you locked in the office all the time. So, Chief, we'll give you the final comments of the day.
All right, the Deputy Chief mentioned our new public safety boat. It's a smaller boat. And again, the purpose of that is that our officers can get out there and be in the public and interact with the public. We're not out there doing crazy enforcement actions. We're out there to be visible and to be partners with the community. And I think all of our actions and all of our goals are to maintain our great relationship that we have with the community. And I'm looking forward to this summer when the events open up again and we can get back to talking to people and interacting with people and continue our great way of life here in Clinton.
I thank Clinton Police Chief Kevin Gyrion and Deputy Police Chief James Ballauer for coming in today.
You're listening to AM 1340 KROS, Clinton, Iowa.
FM 1.